Hello and welcome. In this video segment, we are going to restore the steering wheel, and we're just going to dress up the car, and we want to make it presentable that we can actually put it back on a project that we are actually working on, which is 63 Ford Fairlane. So if you are actually restoring your vehicle, don't put off repairing your steering wheel and make sure your column is in good condition before you go any further, because that is very important. You rather do it now than to do it later after you get the vehicle on the highway. So let's begin. What we're going to do, we're going to remove the steering wheel, and you want to remove your horn button. So in this case, we just want to push in, turn counterclockwise, and just pull out. Remove the spring. Now we need a 15/16 socket. What we need now is a steering wheel puller. Make sure both of your bolts are tightened down on your pulley. And we're going to use an impact gun. And that's all it takes to remove your steering wheel. This is a great time to actually replace your turn signal switch. Now, especially if you have problems with your turn signal switch is not working with your brake light, because if you have an issue with your when you press on your brake and your turn signal stop working, you need to replace your turn signal switch. That's all you have to do. I just want to point out, you see these cuts here, all this imperfection? We're going to fix that in this video. We're going to make this steering wheel look like it did when it came from the factory. They also have some deep cuts right here. We're going to repair all of that as well. Hey guys, I changed shirts because this is going to get messy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with 80 grit sandpaper, and then I'm going to go to 220. Make sure you use a dust mask. This is what we have so far. We have sand it down, and now what we're going to do, we're actually going to take a die grinder. We're going to cut into these cuts, these cracks here. What we want to do now is just clean up some of these cracks enough that we can properly get putty inside of it. You can use a die grinder. I'm going to use a drill. I'm going to use a triangle file for these wide gaps here. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to actually clean, degrease, make sure we have nothing that is going to interfere with what we're trying to do here. And I'm going to use some super clean degreaser. Then we had the steering wheel clean. This is the material that we're going to use. We're going to use new metal epoxy putty. Now what we're going to do, we're going to use the ratio. It's going to be 1:1. We're going to start out with a small section first. Now if it's above 70 degrees in your work area, this will mix up pretty easily. But if your shop, your area It's cooler than 70 degrees. It's going to take a little bit longer and it's going to be a little bit harder to actually mix together.
What you want to do is just keep rolling it together, twist it around, just play with it until it actually becomes one color.
We have one color, now we're ready. So just going to try to fit into the crack as much as possible. Let's put a little water, and water will help it to actually smooth out, guys. Just keep your cup of water. Water can save you from doing a lot of sanding. Now it takes about 12 hours for this to cure.
Try to mix up a little bit of putty at a time as to what you need to repair. Try not to mix up too much because it will harden up on you before you actually able to finish the repair or what you want to do to your project. So it has a time, it works just like regular putty. It will actually dry up on you. So just mix up a little bit at a time.
I think we did a pretty decent job with the back side. I like to start with this side first, and we cover all the cracks. Then we're going to flip it over, and just be careful not to touch what you have done. Then we're going to do the front. We have completed the back and the front. What you want to do is just let this cure for 12 hours. So in my case, I'm just going to let it sit overnight and come back and sand the putty tomorrow. In the meanwhile, you want to make sure that you wash your hands off the best as possible. Either use some Gojo. For the time being, I'm just going to spray some Super Clean on my hands and just work my way to the sink. Now you want to make sure when you're done with this, you want to store it away. Try to get all the air out of it. And we'll put it up on the shelf. It has a very long shelf life. Well, I must admit, we let it sit overnight and the steering wheel looks great. This stuff dried up like steel. And that's what you want. It feels like it's part of the steering wheel already. So next what we're going to do, we're going to use 80 grit sandpaper. We're going to sand it down, and then after that, we're going to use 220 to sand on top of the 80 grit so we can remove some of the defects, some of the scratches that we made from the 80 grit, and we'll work from there.
Now's a good time to get a feel of the whole steering wheel. Just rub your hand all over it as if it's inside the vehicle. You don't want to feel any kind of bump, imperfection. It will just irritate you if you don't fix it now. Just make sure it is smooth as a baby's bottom. Now it's time to eliminate all the imperfections with 220 grit sandpaper.
This is why when you're doing this job, it's so important to wear a mask. I'm still using 220 sandpaper. I want to use a little Dawn detergent. And I'm going to wet sand and wash at the same time. Just want to make sure you wet sand out all the scratches, rinse it off. That's what you want. All the cracks are filled, repaired. Now all we have to do now is just dry it and paint it.
You have several choices on how you want to paint your steering wheel. I'm going to use a single stage paint, and if you have any questions on how to do that, you just go to one of my videos and it'll walk you through it step by step.
Well, this is what we have. Looks great. No more cracks. And if you have a crack, at least we don't have any gaps. We had some really large gaps. Remember before, we had large gaps here. That's all it takes to actually restore your classic steering wheel. Just put a little time in it, some paint, it'll look just as good as brand new. I went ahead and took time to actually paint my steering column too as well. It's worth it because once you put this steering wheel onto the steering column, you want them to both be equal and they look great together. That's what you want. Now, this channel covers restoration, the little tedious things that I like to walk you through step by step to help you to save money on your restoration project and to actually get your vehicle on the road without breaking the bank. I hope this video was helpful. Do not forget to subscribe, take care, and God bless.